Inside the Mind of Dame Unique. Today's episode focuses on character creation. When I first started writing short stories, I struggled immensely with creating realistic characters. After all, if your character is not believable, then your audience won't buy into your narrative. Remember, characters move the story forward and enhance the detail of your story while encouraging your readers to read on. I hope that you find this episode helpful and it becomes a reference tool to get you started on your creative writing journey. So, one of the things that I do when I'm creating my characters is I set the foundation of the character. So I get a sheet of paper, I draw a stick man on there, and I then start to list foundational aspects about my character that I'm about to create. So one of the things that you may wish to use or to start with are the protected characteristics such as gender, race, sexual orientation, so on and so forth. Some of the things I've listed down as listed as aspects to consider would be the hairstyle. You know, is the character bald? Do they have like dreadlocks, braids? Is their hair curly, wavy? Is it blue? Is it pink? Are they a redhead? So on and so forth. The facial features, their ethnicity, as mentioned before, the height of the character. Are they 4'3" or are they 6'4"? Their gender, their age. Are they a child? Are they an adult? You know, where do they fall on the age spectrum? The health of their nails. I know that might sound odd to some people to list this as a foundation element of a character, but nail health is visible from one character to the next. You know, people often cast judgments on, a person's nails. They can look at nails and see a bit of dirt in your nail, for example, and think, oh, that person isn't clean. They're making an assumption, an uninformed assumption on that person, so that other character. So nail health is a good one to put in there, I believe. Does your character have any visible tattoos? Any body scars? And their weight? So there are many more aspects of the foundation to character creation that you can list or come up with, but these are just some examples, and to expand on them, for instance, I've done nail health, so tattoo, for example, or body scar. If your character has a body scar, there could be a backstory behind that body scar. Perhaps the scar is mentioned or foreshadowed in the beginning of your story, and then towards the end of the story or the middle, for example, the readers then get a sense or a better idea of where that scar came from, what was the cause of that scar. So those are some of the things that I feel you can list on your sheet of paper to set the foundation for your character. Another layer that I look at when creating my characters is I look at the core of the character. So the core of your character is the elements that may influence the way they behave. When considering this area, think about what could be most significant. For instance, your character could be a binge eater. Perhaps they have a hidden disability, or maybe they act religious but don't believe. Think about what can be an aspect that would impact the character on any scale. So some examples could be emotional triggers, childhood trauma, hidden disability, concerns like general concerns about society. Maybe they have a big regret, deep desires. happiest memories, a chronic illness, so on and so forth. So these core elements, they help to shape your character in some way, shape or form by being the core, and it's something that your story probably has to keep going back to. Maybe in little bits, maybe by hinting, or maybe the core element of your character becomes the main story. So maybe your story could be about childhood trauma, and maybe it's your protagonist that has gone through this childhood trauma. Another task that I do when trying to create characters is I ask myself some questions. So during the creation of your character, I believe it's best practice to ask yourself a few questions. This task is to assist you as the author in bringing your character to life. So some of the questions I'm going to ask myself during this process, I will read out to you. However, do feel free to write some of your own questions down and spend some time answering them. 1. Does your character remind you of someone you know? If yes, what traits are most important? 2. What does your character mean to your creative piece? Can the story only progress forward with this character? 3. How will your character fit into the story? Are they a hero? Maybe they're a villain? Or maybe they're in support of your protagonist? 4. Why is your character the way that they are? What's the backstory? Is there any family trauma? Do they suffer with addiction? Are they broken-hearted? So on and so forth. 5. When will your character encounter an issue? So, when you're thinking about your character and the particular story that you're writing, or maybe you don't have a story in mind, but you've got a rough idea of a character that you wish to explore, when exactly will that character encounter an issue? So will they fall into debt? Will they perhaps lose a child? Are they being bullied at work? Do they forget to turn off the chip pan? Think about what these things mean. So for example, your character forgets to turn off the chip pan. That leads to a fire. Their house burns down. They weren't insured, so they're now finding themselves in financial distress and thinking, who's going to help me? Maybe they don't have anyone that they can turn to. Perhaps their credit is bad, so they can't get a loan. What happens next to their life? Or because they forgot to turn off the chip pan. So I know I've just actually loaded you with loads of steps to build onto a story, but this is what I mean. What issue does your character encounter? Because this can actually be one of the drivers to drive your story from point A, the start, to point B, the finish. 6. If your character dies, what will this mean for the other characters? How will it change your story? So if your protagonist unfortunately comes to an untimely end, what does this mean for the supporting characters? What does it mean for the villain? Was your protagonist the hero, or what does it mean for the hero of the story? What will you then show? Will you focus on the grief for all the people that loved the protagonist? Will you show how they're grieving? Will you show someone who wasn't keen on your protagonist, like a foe? Will you show them celebrating? What happens when your character dies? And finally, I hope that this episode has given you a little insight or some motivation to get started on character creation. I know it's not an easy task, and I can assure you I will do my utmost best to produce better quality episodes, because I feel like I'm probably not doing this, but I feel like I'm rambling somewhat on this episode. I'm new to this. I want to share my knowledge, and I hope that it's translating clearly from my mind through to your ears. I hope that's happening. But do get your sheet of paper out. Do draw your stick person on the sheet of paper and start listing the foundational characteristics, the core characteristics. Ask yourself, please, don't be afraid to ask yourself questions about your character. It's just between you and your character. You're the author, you are the creative writer, you are creating this, and I believe that you can do this. You've just got to tap into that creative trait of yours. Think about things when creating this character. You can eventually build on the smaller details, like what's the character's favourite colour, their favourite food, what's the worst smell that they've ever smelt in the world, what turns their nose up. You know, they see litter on the floor around the streets of Birmingham and think, ew, that's disgusting. You know, there's dog shit around the city centre and they're sickened by it. And does it cause them to think about the taxes that they pay and their contributions to, you know, the cleanliness of their city? You can build on anything. So, for example, I've got a glass of water on my desk while I'm recording. The glass has an orange base. Just going to pop it down there. Why, for example, I took a sip of water from that glass, placed it back on the desk. At a later stage of me using my desk, I accidentally knocked it over. When it spilt down on my printer or a pile of books that are on the floor. The books were quite expensive. I got upset about it. They were ruined. I cried because I love books. I shed a lot of tears, and then I felt really like naive and stupid. And then I started talking down to myself, being very deprecating. Apologies if I get these words wrong. I've said previously I'm not the brightest bulb in the room, so I become self-deprecating, and then I take that small, brief moment of clumsiness, and I what do you call it? What's that word? Oh my! I catastrophize it, and it becomes something bigger. Then I go out into the world and I'm in a mood because I've ruined my books with a glass of water, and I go into the shop and I'm moody, and I go to work and I'm in a foul mood at that point, and I'm just become very isolated and shut down, and I don't want to talk to anyone. And in my head I'm going over and over again, I've ruined those books, or maybe I've ruined my journals that I write in, handwritten journals, and I've ruined the ink, and I think, oh, some of the pages have now lost the text that I wrote. So you can build upon your characters in any way, shape or form. Perhaps you just want to focus on the character's appearance. Maybe the character is narcissistic. Maybe they love themselves so much so that they believe that they are the one and only most beautiful person in this entire world, and no one else will ever look as good as they do. So you focus on how long their eyelashes are, or perhaps they're fake eyelashes that they've stuck onto their eyes, but they see them as real eyelashes and theirs because they paid for them. Perhaps they've always wanted to have green eyes, so they wear contacts, and if people ask them, are they your real eyes? They say yes, they are. And they make up a story about it was from my granddad's side of the family, so you can really delve into character creation, and you know what, enjoy it. Don't be so hard on yourself. Bearing in mind, there are like billions of people on this earth. No one's perfect. Every single person is different. There's different combinations to the humans that we are today. So imagine and believe and trust there are billions of combinations to the characters that can be created in this world. So when you're looking at that sheet of paper and you're thinking about the foundational elements of a character and you're thinking about the core elements of a character, don't put yourself down and think, oh, I need to write my character like to be more like Patrick Bateman, created by Bret Easton Ellis. Don't get me wrong, I love the character of Patrick Bateman. In fact, American Psycho is one of my favourite reads. But you create your character, you focus on your protagonist. Perhaps your protagonist loves to wear cherry-flavoured lip balm. Maybe your protagonist, maybe your character, because it doesn't necessarily have to be the protagonist, but maybe the character that you're working on is vegan. Perhaps they're anti-vegan and they don't care about the world around them. They're just big consumers and think, I've got the money, I'm going to buy what I want, and I don't care about the future because I won't be here. Think about the foundational elements. Do they have freckles? Is their nose running? Do they have like hay fever? Are they allergic to strawberries? Does dairy cheese give them spots? Give them like acne? There's so many different ways that you can go through character creation. But my first and main point is get that sheet of paper, draw that stick person, and start putting the little arrows and labels of what are the foundational elements of your character, and then focus on the core elements of your character. And please, 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 remember to ask yourself questions. Don't be afraid to question yourself. Please, don't be afraid to question yourself. I do it and sometimes I'm like, oh, this doesn't sound right, or that's weird. Or can I do this? Am I afraid to do this? Maybe I'm writing about a villain and I'm thinking, I can't write about that. My character has kidnapped a child. No. Maybe I'm scared to write about these dark and dangerous characters, but do ask yourself these questions about your characters. And I know this probably sounds a bit cheesy, but once I've got like the foundational and core elements, and you don't need many, you can have like 4 or 5 to start off with, and as you become more confident in character creation, then please feel free to build on it. I then stick my character creations on a wall, and when I'm deciding on the story, if I already haven't thought about what kind of story I'm going to write, I then look at the characters and think, oh, who can I put into this story that I'm writing about? Who can I put into this story that I'm writing? My English is treacherous, I apologise. But yes, enjoy the process. Don't be hard on yourself. Be kind to yourself. Pour into your heart. Ask yourself questions. Don't be afraid to give them honest answers. And if you feel like something isn't for you, then try something else. Character creation for every writer is very different. Some people might get onto their smart device and record their voice and say, okay, character A, their name is Harry, they are 5 years old, they have brown hair, blue eyes, they like strawberry ice cream, but they're allergic to dairy. Enjoy it, embrace it. And also, thank you. I do value the time we spend together because I love helping people, and I'm thankful that you're here. I'm thankful that you're here and you've listened to this entire episode. I really hope that you draw some inspiration from it, and that you feed that back to me if you want to. Reach out to me on social media. I'm rarely active on Instagram, but I do check it from time to time, and I hope this year I become more social media friendly. I guess as an introvert, I'm just interested in reading quotes online or something of that nature. I'm not necessarily, involved in the constant postings because I'm not an influencer. I'm just me. I'm unique. And now I'm waffling. I am a chatterbox also. That could be part of your character's foundational traits. They love to talk and they can't stop talking. Then they decide one day to make a podcast, and then they post a second episode like 2 weeks after because they became Spotify shy. Thank you for listening and tuning in to my next episode of Inside the Mind of Dame Unique.